The first time it happened, I thought I was dreaming. It was 2:47 a.m. when I woke up to a strange feeling, like someone was watching me. The room was dark except for the faint glow of the street lamp outside. I turned over and reached out, expecting to feel Alex beside me, but the bed was empty. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I sat up, my heart pounding, and listened. The house was silent, except for the distant hum of the refrigerator. Then a shadow moved near the window. Alex. He was sitting in the armchair by the window, his back facing me, staring outside. I frowned. Alex? My voice was hoarse with sleep. No response. I pushed the covers off and swung my legs over the side of the bed. The wooden floor was cold under my feet as I walked toward him. Alex, what are you doing? He didn't flinch. His posture was rigid, his hands gripping the armrests of the chair. Alex? I said again, this time louder. Finally, he turned his head slightly, just enough for me to see his profile. It's nothing, babe. Go back to sleep. His voice was quiet, almost detached. I frowned. Are you okay? You look... I hesitated. You look like you've seen a ghost. He let out a short breath, something between a sigh and a chuckle. I'm fine. He glanced at me and forced a small smile. Just couldn't sleep. I didn't believe him. Why didn't you just come back to bed? Alex finally turned to face me completely. His expression was unreadable, but something in his eyes unsettled me. It's nothing. Just go to sleep, Liv. I swallowed. He never called me by my full name. It was always Baby or Livy. Something felt wrong. Come on. I tried again, reaching for his hand. Let's go back to bed. He hesitated for a moment before taking my hand. His palm was ice cold. We climbed back under the covers, and I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to his slow, controlled breathing. It took me a long time to fall asleep again. The second time it happened, I woke up alone. I checked my phone. 3:12 a.m. The space next to me was cold, like he had been gone for a while. I got out of bed, heart pounding. The door to the hallway was slightly ajar. I stepped out. The house was dark, but I could see a faint light coming from Alex's office. The door was half closed. I crept closer, careful not to make a sound. That's when I heard his voice. I told you it's not time yet. His tone was tense, hushed. I don't care what they say, we have to wait. A pause. Then, softer. Fine, just give me another week. My stomach twisted into a tight knot. Who was he talking to? I held my breath and leaned in closer. The floor creaked beneath my foot. Silence. My pulse spiked. I turned to leave, but before I could take a step, the door swung open. Alex stood there, his phone still in his hand. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. Then he smiled. Hey, babe. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp, calculating. I forced a shaky laugh. Couldn't sleep again? He tilted his head. Yeah, just checking some work emails. Liar. I didn't know how I knew, but I did. I nodded, pretending to believe him. Okay, let's go back to bed. He hesitated for a fraction of a second. Then he stepped forward, turned off the light, and placed a hand on my lower back. Yeah, let's go. His touch was gentle, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just made a mistake. That night I barely slept. And the next morning I did something I had never done before. I went through his laptop. That's when I found the hidden folder. I wasn't the kind of person to snoop. At least, that's what I used to tell myself. But after last night, after hearing Alex's voice, the tension in his words, and the way he looked at me when I caught him, I knew something wasn't right. That morning, while Alex was in the shower, I sat on the couch with my coffee, staring at his laptop on the dining table. It was open, no password. I hesitated. This felt like crossing a line. But then I thought about the way he had whispered into his phone, the way he had told someone it's not time yet. I put my coffee down, wiped my sweaty palms on my pajama pants, and opened the laptop. A stranger's identity. At first, everything looked normal. The desktop had a few folders labeled work, taxes, photos, nothing suspicious. I clicked on his browser history. Mostly boring, news sites, weather, some tech blogs. But then, a folder caught my eye. It was hidden. I right-clicked and selected Show Hidden Files. A single folder appeared. It was labeled Area 51. My breath hitched. My hands trembled as I clicked on it. Inside were documents. Passports, driver's licenses, bank statements, all with different names, different identities. But the photos, they were all Alex. I felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. I clicked on a passport. The name was Daniel Cole. A different birth date, but the same face. Another one, Mark DeLuca. Another, Ethan Ford. I scrolled through bank accounts under names I had never heard before. Different states, different addresses. Who the hell was my husband? Behind me, the shower turned off. A dangerous discovery. Panic surged through me. I closed everything and set the laptop back exactly how I found it. My heart was hammering so hard I thought I might throw up. I grabbed my coffee, forced myself to sit still, and tried to look normal. A few moments later, Alex walked into the living room, a towel around his waist, rubbing his hair dry with another. "Morning, beautiful," he said, leaning down to kiss my forehead. I smiled, but my stomach churned. "Morning." My voice sounded too light, too forced. He didn't seem to notice. He walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge. "You want eggs?" I shook my head. "I'm not really hungry." He glanced at me over his shoulder. "You okay?" I sipped my coffee, hoping he didn't see how my hands shook. "Yeah, just didn't sleep well." He studied me for a moment, and then, in a tone so casual it almost felt intentional, he asked, "Did you use my laptop this morning?" I froze. My fingers tightened around the mug. "No." "Why?" He shrugged. "Just checking. I thought I left a window open, but when I came back, everything was closed." I forced a small laugh. "Maybe it timed out?" He smiled. "Yeah, maybe." But something in his eyes told me he didn't believe that. A shadow of doubt. The rest of the day I couldn't focus. I kept replaying everything in my head. The hidden identities. The way Alex had reacted when I caught him last night. The way he had tested me just now. I needed more answers. That night, after Alex fell asleep, I slipped out of bed. My heart pounded as I grabbed my phone and tiptoed into the living room. I opened a private browser and started searching. Multiple fake identities. What does it mean? The results made my stomach drop. Witness protection, criminal activity, CIA undercover agents. None of the options were comforting. I kept scrolling. One result stood out. If someone you know has multiple identities, you need to be very careful. They may be running from something or someone. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I turned off my phone, swallowed hard, and sat in the dark trying to control my breathing. Who was Alex really? And what was he hiding from? I didn't know it then, but I had just made a mistake. By the next morning, I would realize he knew that I knew. I barely slept that night. Lying next to Alex, I could hear his steady breathing, feel the warmth of his body just inches away. But now, knowing what I knew, or rather, knowing how much I didn't know about him, it felt like I was lying next to a complete stranger. Every time I closed my eyes, my mind filled with possibilities. Who was he? What was he hiding? And most terrifying of all, did he already suspect me? I must have drifted off at some point because when I opened my eyes, the bedroom was still dark, but something was wrong. The bed next to me was empty. He knows. A cold wave of fear crashed over me. My heart pounded as I sat up and listened. There was a faint glow coming from under the office door. Alex was awake. Again. I slipped out of bed as quietly as possible, my bare feet making no sound against the hardwood floor. Step by step, I moved toward the door, pressing my back against the wall just beside it. His voice was low, urgent. "No, I'm telling you, something's different. She's acting weird." My breath caught in my throat. Was he talking about me? "I don't think she found everything, but it's only a matter of time." No. No, that's not an option. I swallowed hard. An option for what? I leaned in closer, but the floor creaked under my foot. Silence. The air felt electric, charged with tension. Then the door swung open. Alex stood there, his phone still in his hand, his face blank. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then, in the same calm voice he always used, he smiled. "Hey, babe. A dangerous game." I forced a shaky laugh. "Couldn't sleep again?" Alex studied me, his blue eyes unreadable. Then he leaned against the doorframe, casually slipping his phone into his pocket. "Yeah," he said, "just going over some things for work." Liar. I nodded, pretending to believe him. I was just getting some water. He glanced at the kitchen, then back at me. "Oh, you look like you were standing there for a while." A test. He was testing me. I smiled, hoping it looked natural. I was half asleep, guess I spaced out. He watched me for a second too long, then chuckled. "That's cute." I turned toward the kitchen, trying to control my breathing. But as I reached for a glass, I felt his presence behind me, too close. The hairs on my neck stood up. His voice was soft. "You know, Liv, I've been thinking. I forced myself to keep my movements natural. Yeah? Maybe we should take a trip, just the two of us." I gripped the glass tighter. "Oh!" Alex's hand slid around my waist. "Yeah. Somewhere quiet. No distractions. Just us." A chill ran down my spine. "That sounds nice." My voice barely came out. He pressed a slow kiss to my temple. Good, because I already booked it. I swallowed hard. "When?" He smiled against my hair. "Tomorrow night." I forced myself to nod. "Okay." "I knew you'd say yes," he murmured. "I'll take care of everything." Something in his tone sent a wave of nausea through me. Alex never planned trips last minute, never made decisions like this without asking me. He wasn't inviting me on a trip. He was removing me from the equation. Escape plan. I barely made it back to bed without collapsing from the fear crawling through my veins. I had to get out. The problem was, I had no idea who I was dealing with. I needed a plan. I needed proof. And most importantly, I needed to make sure he didn't realize I was already one step ahead of him. Because if he did, I might not make it out alive. My mind raced the entire night. Alex had planned something. That much was clear. I could feel it in the way he spoke, in the way he watched me, as if he were waiting for me to make a wrong move. By the time the sun rose, I had made my decision. I needed to leave. But how? If I made it obvious, if he even suspected that I was running, I knew I wouldn't get far. The act! When I walked into the kitchen that morning, Alex was already there, leaning against the counter with a cup of coffee in his hands. He smiled at me like nothing was wrong. "Morning, beautiful," he said. I forced a yawn, stretching my arms. "Morning." I walked over, kissed his cheek like I always did. I had to be careful. If he sensed my fear, it was over. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "I was thinking," he said casually, "we should leave a little earlier today. Beat traffic." My stomach clenched, but I kept my expression relaxed. "That sounds good. What time?" "Maybe around 6? He sipped his coffee, watching me over the rim of his mug. "That way we can grab dinner on the way." He was watching my reaction, testing me. I smiled and leaned against the counter. "Perfect, but before we go, I need to run a few errands." He tilted his head. "Errands?" I nodded, sipping my own coffee. "Yeah, just little things. I need to stop by the pharmacy, pick up some skincare stuff, maybe get my nails done." I rolled my eyes playfully. "You know, girly things." He chuckled, but something in his eyes darkened. "Can't it wait? We'll be gone for a while." I shook my head. "I'll be quick. Just a couple of hours. Plus, I don't want to look like a mess on our trip." That last part seemed to relax him. He smiled. "All right. Just don't be late." "I won't." But I was lying. I wasn't coming back. The escape. I grabbed a tote bag, stuffing it with essentials, wallet, phone, charger, a change of clothes. I didn't want to seem like I was running away, so I left everything else behind. At exactly noon, I kissed Alex goodbye and walked out the door. The moment I stepped outside, a cold rush of panic hit me. What if he was watching from the window? What if he already knew? I forced myself to walk casually to my car. Not too fast, not too slow. Just a normal day. Once inside, I locked the doors and started the engine. As I pulled out of the driveway, my hands trembled against the wheel. Don't look back. But I did. And I saw him standing at the front door, watching me. The truth I shouldn't have known. I drove straight to a hotel outside the city and paid in cash. Once I locked myself in my room, I grabbed my phone and started searching. If Alex had fake identities, bank accounts, and aliases, there had to be a record somewhere. I typed in one of the names from his fake passport. Mark DeLuca. A few links popped up. Some were normal, just people with the same name. But one caught my eye. It was an old news article from 5 years ago. I clicked on it. The headline made my stomach drop. "Missing person. Mark DeLuca disappears under suspicious circumstances." The article was from another state. It talked about a man, same face as Alex, who had vanished overnight. Vanished. I clicked on another name. Daniel Cole. Another article. Local man found dead after mysterious disappearance. I gasped, my fingers shaking. This wasn't witness protection. This wasn't some secret agent life. This was something worse. Every single identity Alex had used belonged to someone who had either disappeared or died. And I was next. The final call. My hands fumbled as I dialed the only person I could think of, my best friend, Mia. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, Liv? What's up? Mia, my voice broke. I need your help. I need you to... A knock at the door. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. No, it couldn't be. Another knock, this time softer. A voice low and familiar sent ice through my veins. Liv opened the door. Alex, he had found me, and I had just run out of time.